Hi everyone, my name's Heather Gavell from Momentum Product Company. I am the founder and product practice lead, and today I'm going to walk you through the workshop overview from the AI Power Hour that was sponsored by Communitech. So the goal of this workshop is to build a reusable AI assistant, and we're going to do that in Claude in the browser-based application. So just the Claude.ai free version is the sample that I'm going to show. The reason why this is important is that the tolerance for AI generated content is falling rapidly. People are becoming increasingly frustrated with AI slop. There's so many telltales in AI language that's being generated, and we're at the point now that it's really a requirement, whether you're speaking to peers, customers, management, boards, investors, you need to have more of a customized tone to the content that you're generating. And so today we're going to build 3 layers of context. So the first one is going to be role and business. So who you are, what your company does, what makes you different. The second one is going to be ecosystem. So things like competitors, value proposition, how customers actually talk about you. And then the last one is voice and style. So a reflection of how you actually sound and how you write. And then we're going to test it against a real piece of writing and then save it in the project custom instructions so that every piece of content you generate in that project is going to maintain that context. So for this exercise, I'm going to use a company called Launchpad. So this is a B2B SaaS onboarding platform. They have about 300 customers, $20 million of ARR. They have a series of competitors listed here: WalkMe, Pendo, AppQ's, UserPilot, and obviously DIY, so folks that are just building their own flows. And the person that we're trying to mimic their voice is the VP of Customer Success. Her name is Maya. And the issue that she's trying to resolve, so the task that we're applying this context to, is replying to a customer that has experienced a 4-day delay on having a priority 1 bug surfaced and not resolved. So Maya is responding directly to this customer who's been waiting 4 days for this bug to be resolved. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to start by putting that exact task that I described to you into a 0 context chat. So we're going to say, here we go. Draft a 4-sentence email to a customer who's been waiting 4 days for us to respond to a P1 onboarding bug, and we have a fix going out tonight. So what I'll do is I will just go to new chat, I'll paste that in, and we'll see what comes out. You'll note that I am using Sonnet, so I'm using a low capability model for this, and that's perfectly okay. The amount of data is not very high. We're not going across multiple data set sources, so the amount of reasoning is just not very complex, so this model will work just fine for this task. So here we have a response. I want to sincerely apologize for the 4-day delay in getting back to you. This fell short of the standard of support you deserve, especially for a P1 issue. Our team has identified the root cause. You should be unblocked by tomorrow. I'll follow. Thanks for your patience. Sorry again for the disruption. That sounds like a AI generated support bot. That does not sound like a VP of customer success. That, who knows, this customer could be on the verge of churning. They could be a very high dollar value customer. So this is not doing it. We would not want to be sending this out to this customer. So what we're going to do is we're going to start a project right here, and we will call it AI Assistant for Launchpad. And again, this is for writing communications. You can use this process for all types of automated tasks and memory things that you want to save and apply consistently. So we're going to go with the first layer of context. So this would be who you are, what you do, and what makes you different. And it's really important to ask Claude to not act, but actually restate back to you what it heard. So if you're doing this with your own data, and I encourage you absolutely to do so, make sure that when Claude gives you an output, you ask yourself, like, does that actually sound like what our business does? Or does that sound like a generic company. Because if it doesn't, either you want to push Claude to give you more detail, or you need to add more context. So you want to always do that gut check after when you're reading it through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the first prompt in, which is I'm building a reusable assistant. Here's the first layer of context, my role in my business. Read it carefully, then restate it back in your own words so I know what's stuck. I'm going to say that I'm the VP of Customer Success at Launchpad. This is what we do, and here's what makes us different. So I'll copy this in. I'll put it in this chat. And here we go. Okay, so looks pretty good. It's telling me about my key differentiator. And very importantly, unlike the generic AI slop support chatbot response that we just got, it knows. It's now saying, oh, like, okay, you're the VP of CS. You're presumably responsible for retention, expansion, and making sure customers actually get value out of the platform. So given that our product is actually about helping others drive customer value, so there's some nuance there that it's pulling out, which is super valuable. So let's try then to get that same prompt in there and see if we get something a little more specific to my role and the business. So this is a lot better. It says, I'm reaching out to you personally. If you're responding from support or another function, it would be unusual to say I'm reaching out to you personally. So that makes sense. And then it's really calling out like this is not the standard that we hold ourselves to. So that's also really important, and talks about tracking the issue closely. And then it says, I welcome a quick call. So again, offering that one-on-one connection, and thanks for your patient. That. And then there's a couple variants on that too. So it doesn't know my voice. So it's giving the optionality on the voice. Once you give it your voice, it's not going to give you these options because it already knows how you like to speak. But then this one's like warm and, stepping in personally because I want to make sure you're feel taken care of and not just ticketed. And like that sounds like a VP responding to a customer. So definitely hit the mark on this one for the first prompt. So let's add on that second one that we talked about. So again, if you're doing this yourself, I encourage you to put in your own competitors, how customers talk about you. So it's got to be verbatim, not paraphrased, not AI generated from transcripts. It has to be exactly how customers talk about you. And then you tell it, when I share my next prompt, use this ecosystem, position whatever I'm working against, my actual competitors, and it has that stuff in it. So this is great. So we'll add this in Launchpad context. So we'll put this in here. And we'll also say, when I share my next prompt. Okay, and then we'll say we want it to restate back tensions. So this is helpful as well. So here's what it said. It tells us our 5 meaningful competitors, which is great. Core position, which is that customer success teams have autonomy. Customers are staying partly by default, so not by conviction. And we actually have a reliability problem that's contradicting one of our core promises. And that's when it talks about the tensioning. Like your team can own onboarding, but if flows break silently when the app changes, your teams don't actually own it. So the gap between the promise and the experience is where the churn risk lives, and probably the sharpest competitors will attack if they're paying attention. Seems like it got it. It had a good understanding based on what we put in here. And obviously you can put a lot more detail, but that's the first point there. So let's try to run that same ask for the draft right here and see if we get something different. So this is really useful because it's basically saying that, okay, now that I have the ecosystem context loaded, I want to flag something. It says P1 is a silent flow failure. So the DOM change issue your customer flagged, the email carries more weight than a standard apology because that's not just a slow response, it's your core promise breaking in the exact way customers already worry about it. So it's taking this up a notch in terms of how serious it's going to respond. So it's got like 4 days is not acceptable. I'm writing you personally to own that gap. Our team is fixing this. What I care about most right now is you choose Launchpad so they can move fast without waiting on engineering, like you're waiting on us. And then again, it doesn't know our tone. So it's going to give us like more accountable, direct, staccato versus kind of a warmer relationship focus. But it understands that this isn't just about like, hey, we'll get back to you tomorrow. Sorry that you had to wait. This is like, I maybe won't buy this product going forward because this is such a fundamental variance from the promise that you gave to us when we bought the product. And it knows that because you told it why customers bought the product. So it really matters the context that you put in here, and you can see that it's drafting a response accordingly. So that's great. So the last one that we're going to talk about is the voice, right? So you want to paste real writing samples. It's ideal if you can segment those writing samples. So the way you talk to a peer versus management versus customers versus the board or investors, they're all going to have different tonalities. So you want to take examples of communications you've used and explain to Claude what tone you use where and why. And then it will know when you say, hey, I'm crafting a response to our board based on their feedback on our deck, like this is why what it's using. You also want to say, I would never say this. Really, really important. So if you call out never, it will be banned from the word choices that it uses. And we'll put in guardrails and also things of that nature to ensure that it is customizing it in the way that we're looking for. So let's go down to that third level of context. And again, you have this file. If you attended the workshop, this file has been made available to you. So you can definitely add this in there. So there's my voice. Put this in here. And also put this, when I share my next prompt, write output in this voice. Don't soften it. Don't formalize this. If the phrase wouldn't sound like me, don't use it. So we'll get that in there too. And here we go. Okay, this looks pretty good. It's saying, here's what I've locked in for your voice. Lead with the point, no preamble, warm but soft, specifically, detail signal care, short and punchy sign off, constraints acknowledged before assertions, and then the never list, right? Like I would never say unlock, supercharge, transform, game changer, I hope this email finds you well, all that stuff. So it's crafted that, and every time it uses a phrase that I would never use, I tell it that and say, please update either my voice skill or in this case, the voice prompt or the custom instructions to ensure that you do not use that going forward. So it's really important as you're training it, every time you see something that is an absolute no, you've got to communicate that back. Don't just reiterate on the prompt, oh, take that out, I wouldn't say that. You've got to tell it to update the system, not the prompt. So let's add in this last time. So 3 layers of context now and see what the variance is with our own voice. So this looks pretty good. It's got the person's name, 4 days is on us. I want to reach out directly rather than sit in the queue, or engineering has the fix ready, have the CSM confirm with you. I know, and again, why you chose our product and where we let you down. I know you chose Launchpad so your team could move fast without waiting on anyone. And this week we made it wait on us. Not okay. Let's talk this week and figure out what making this right looks like. Very on point for the communication style of this individual. So this looks pretty good. Except the last step of this exercise is all about pressure testing. And honestly, if you take one thing out of this workshop, this is the thing you should take. AI is incredibly good at agreeing with you and building on bias that you already have. So you already think certain communications are optimal because they're your point of view and your style. But what the benefit of these tools are is it can actually tell you how other people might read it and interpret it. That's not ideal. So you want to say, hey, critique the output you just gave me. What's the strongest argument that this is wrong, off tone, or going to land badly with this customer? Be specific and let's rewrite the line that's most at risk. So when we add that in, let's take a look at what will come out. Sorry, just really quick right here. What we'll get back. So let's try this. So here's what the risks are in the communication it's already drafted. It basically said that the strongest argument against these drafts is that the engineering queue line is too clever and risks landing as self-aware brand messaging at exactly the wrong moment. And it tells us that the specific problem is basically this customer's been sitting on a P1 bug for 4 days and they're frustrated. When they read, you picked Launchpad to stay out of the engineering queue and this week we put you in ours, even if it's true and it's self-aware, it really reads as like you're using our own buying rationale against us to sound relatable. It's just a little too packaged, which it absolutely is. It sounds like marketing jargon. And a genuinely frustrated customer might say, like, hey, great, you're turning my complaint into a talking point. And the second draft ends with what fair looks like. So this is also a really good point. And if you were in sales, you would take serious issue with somebody sending this, which is basically the customer hasn't even asked for anything yet, and you're already surfacing compensation language, meaning like, how can we make this right? Probably not ideal. So if that's unprompted, it could accidentally signal that you expect them to push for something, or that you're trying to get a churn conversation where they would leave your business, which feels really calculated. So it's saying like, hey, this line here, I know you chose Launchpad so your team could move fast without waiting on anyone. We made you wait on us. That's not okay. It's like, nope. You've been waiting for 4 days on something that should have been fixed at 1. That's on us, and I'm sorry. Simple, no brand narrative. The accountability hits harder because it's not wrapped in positioning. This is so bang on. Like, so many things that come out of AI actually sound like journalism or just hard marketing speak. And when you're responding to an emotional concern or a conflict, like, is this communication? That's not okay, and it rubs people the wrong way. And AI picked up on that. So even though it drafted it, it's also trying to draft in a way that maybe I would already speak, or this particular person would already speak. So it's finding for you how a customer might misinterpret that and making suggestions. So this is super valuable. So the last thing we're going to do is we are going to save this in a project. You can do this. There's instructions here for how to do it on ChatGPT, the Plus tier, by creating a custom GPT, how you can do it in Gemini by creating a gem, or just put it in a document, and then you can use it in a bunch of different AI tools. So what we'll do is we'll go back to that project and we will add it right here. Oops, sorry. Let me just pop back to where we just were. So now we'll say, summarize everything I've taught you across 3 layers into a single block of system instructions that I can paste into a project. So this is where we're really moving into solidifying and reusing all of the learnings that it just did. So lots of good synthesis here. So role and company, competitive landscape, customer reality, voice and style, never use. Also details around when drafting emails are calm. It's saying flag missing information, and then self-critique standing. So when asked to critique an output, lead with the strongest argument against it, not a balanced list. And then the other thing is it's telling you what's not here, which is great. So it's saying a few things I'd suggest before pasting into a project: put your last name, and also tier specific context. So if it's a growth versus an enterprise plan, you're probably going to respond differently, and they might be like persona specific. So really helpful. We'll head back to that project, to those custom instructions. We'll save that in, and there it is. So the whole idea is that as we go forward, we need to iterate on that. And every time we learn something new, we recommit to and re-update our prompt or our skill or whatever that context lives. Lots of other ideas here. You can use very individual specific tone. So, ideally you want to write in your voice, but you also want to generate the best outcome for whatever communication you're in. And AI can actually use your transcripts to know what language you've used that has led to the most successful outcomes, depending on the person you're talking to, and then help you customize your engagement with that person so that you get the best outcomes. So for example, if you're working with a specific founder that wants to ingest information in a certain way, it will learn that from looking at all your engagements. And then if you say, hey, I'm having this meeting, or I'm building this deck, or I have this brief I have to write, it will customize it based on those skills that it would have learned from your engagement. So that's one way for sure. And then obviously, like that format adaptability that we talked about, you want to have communications that are right for the right types of formats. So that's it. Again, I was just trying to build it at home with different things, and please join us in the Momentum Working AI group Slack channel. Great place to ask questions, get support, share what you've learned. So we hope to see you there. Have a great day.